Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Divorce Real Talk, your number one resource to get you through your divorce. I'm Matteo, here with my man Gio, and today we dive into Chapter 7 of the Divorce Playbook, Legal Options. And let's get something straight right away here. Divorce isn't a bar fight, it's chess. And too many people walk into this thing swinging emotionally instead of strategically. How you handle your divorce legally will define how you come out of it financially, emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. And there's no single best path. However, there is a worse one, and that is walking into this alone, armed with Google and anger.
And ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, that's the biggest one right now. Look, today we're going to break down the 4 legal paths. Number 1, pro se. Number 2, mediation. Number 3, collaborative divorce. And finally, number 4, litigation. But look, we're not just going to talk about what they are. We're going to talk about the emotional cost of each one, because your legal strategy isn't just paperwork. It's protection, it's peace, it's leverage, and recovery. Gio, my man, I always hear you say, peace if possible, power if necessary. Break that down for someone who's someone in the middle of all this chaos right now.
No matter what happened in your marriage, if you're headed towards divorce, the hope is that you both take a peaceful approach to it. You both take the adult, mature decision of, hey, it didn't work out. Now let's finalize things. But in order for that to happen, both people need to be willing to sit down at the table. So whenever possible, you approach it from a position of peace. Unfortunately, if you have one that wants to cause havoc, or if both of you want to cause havoc, then you're going to have to go the power route, which is involving attorneys. But you got to understand something. There's a cost to peace. There's a cost to power. Peace is less expensive. Power, you can go after what you want, but you better be ready to unload from that wallet of yours.
Isn't that the truth? And why do you think that people underestimate how their legal choice impacts their emotional health?
Social media and the opinion of others. We live in a society where we think we know everything, or we think we have access to everything, so we don't need the actual help that we really need. So we advance thinking that I deserve this or I deserve that. And you think it's law, but it isn't. So so many people end up trying this on their own, screwing it up, and then crying because their legal bill is 2, 3, 4, 5 times what it would have been had you started with an attorney in the first place.
And we see that all the time. You and I deal with this on a daily basis. What do you think that is one of the biggest mistakes that you see when somebody chooses their legal path, besides the financial piece that we just talked about?
So the biggest mistakes when people are picking their legal path is, 1, they think that they can handle part of it on their own. 2, they think that they just need an attorney, so they look for the cheapest one. And 3, they think they're smarter than everybody else. You're not. I often hear, Gio, I need your help because, I don't know what it's like to get divorced. You're not supposed to. So if you're getting divorced, you're walking into an unknown territory. Get the help that you need to be able to go through it. It's when I hear people say, but I looked it up on ChatGPT and I looked it up here. I've had people say, well, all of my research comes from ChatGPT and it tells me this. Do you know that ChatGPT has never told me that I was wrong? I'm serious. ChatGPT is like an online best friend, because the prompt that you give it, it's going to find a way to give you what you want. An attorney doesn't do that.
I thought it was so smart. It's always telling me that I'm great.
For those of you who watch The Simpsons, there's one episode where, and this is how I compare ChatGPT with the rest of the world. Homer goes, I am so smart. SMR. It's great for baseline stuff. It's not an attorney.
I was actually listening to someone that's very well versed in ChatGPT says that there is a prompt and I'm going to dig deeper into it, but there's a prompt that you can tell it to, hey, I want you to challenge me. I want you to do certain things. So it's not always telling you you're right. And have you heard this before?
I have heard it before, but it's still an imperfect system.
Correct.
Let it
Correct.
challenge you on how to bake a cake. Let it challenge you on a recipe. Let it challenge you on something that doesn't hold a big part of your life in the balance.
Right. And why is pro se? Because I think that's something that most people think of at the beginning. Because everybody believes if you don't have children, possibly you don't have too much property. But people think that it's a clean cut. It's easy. My divorce is easy. Why is pro se always a trap?
Because you're not a lawyer.
Simple as that.
You're not a lawyer. The lawyer, I always tell people, Matteo, you're the team captain. The attorney is there to apply the law. No matter how complicated, or no matter how easy the matter is, you're the team captain. The attorney is there to apply the law. The attorney is there to dot the I's, cross the T's. The attorney is there to make sure that you do everything properly. The attorney is there as the insurance policy because, there's one case in particular. Person went through mediation. Everything went great. Mediator drafted the agreement. And in the agreement, she was supposed to receive compensation for something. But the way that the agreement was written, he was going to receive the compensation. So this person didn't need us for representation. Said, hey, can you look over this document and see if I'm exposed anywhere? So hired a firm on a consultation basis. The attorney went through and said, hey, I thought you told me that you were supposed to receive the compensation, not him. She goes, yeah. Well, the way this is written, it's the other way around. So then they had to hire us to go back to the negotiating table, make sure that everything was done properly. And when I say us, I don't mean me. I mean the law firm I represent, and it's the attorneys, because I'm not an attorney. I can't give legal advice. I'm not going to pretend to be an attorney. But it ended up costing this person over $5,000 to clean up a mistake from a professional that helped them. So when you advance pro se, and you gotta remember this, judges hold you to the standard of an attorney. Just because you walk into it on your own doesn't mean that the judge is gonna hold your hand as you go through things. The judge expects you to know procedure. And if you don't, tough cookies. And no matter how easy it could be, the possibility of a mistake and then to unwind it and then to clean it up can be a disaster. And we've seen it, Matteo. How many people have we met with, right? That they hear the quotes of the retainers of the law firms we represent. They're like, no, I'm going to do this on my own. And then 2 months later, they're back and they're like, yeah, I screwed up. And it's like, oh, okay, but now you're at a completely different. No, but you told me it was going to be X amount back then. Yeah, well, now it's going to be more.
I see people coming out of court trying to self-represent pro se, and the judge just cleans the floor with them because they don't know procedures, like you said. They don't understand the law. And here they are trying to navigate something this important. The one thing you lose when you don't have an attorney is the protections that are built in and designed to help you not only now, because that's now is just happening now, but in the future, because things are going to change. Mark my words, things will change. And if you don't have those protections in now, it's a lot more difficult later. All of a sudden, your ex-husband or wife want to move state or province, and you don't have these protections built in. And now you have to start at square one. And depending on whether you're joint custody, the different custody options, you're going to be way behind in trying to figure this out. Do you agree with that?
And let's not forget something, because we're going to talk about this, and we have talked about this, and it's something we talk about ad nauseum. When we talk about how to choose an attorney, because there's a lot of great attorneys out there, but damn it, are there a lot of chop shops out there, or attorneys that are not as qualified, or attorneys that you should just stay away from. So imagine that there's people that studied for the bar, are licensed, but should not be working in family law. So imagine if you've got people like this and you still think it's okay to represent yourself. I always go back to James Sexton. He's all over social media, big time divorce lawyer. And he talks about a story that he won but should have lost. So he was representing this big time bad dude, and there was domestic violence involved, and she had the attorney that was given to her by the state, right? Like a pro bono attorney. And there was a very key piece of evidence that they needed to put in, right? And there's a specific way of saying it. And he didn't want to win, right? Like he wanted to lose because this guy was a really bad dude. And he talks about how there's a certain way of presenting evidence to the court, and she just couldn't do it. And he goes, and it's the most basic line. Like there's a certain line of questioning. And in his mind, and he even gets emotional in the video, he goes, and she's gonna, because this attorney doesn't know how to put in the evidence, you know? And we hear the stories, but the judge was biased against me. No, he wasn't. You didn't know what the hell you were doing. But we always take it as that personal chip on our shoulder rather than say, you know what, I wasn't represented and I took the hit for it.
I find this happens more to men. And I remember it might have been episode 2 or 3 where you dropped a bombshell and you said that, men think that the court system is against them. But what you find is that men are just not as prepared. They come from a place of being reactive instead of being proactive and getting that legal clarity, getting that representation, being prepared. They're just not prepared. They go into this thing. And when you said that at first, I was like, yeah, I'm not sure if I believe that 100%. But man, you are right. I have to say that I've been paying attention to that more and more on different cases. And I'm like, wow, this person is just not prepared. So you really opened my eyes to that. So I want to thank you. When it comes to mediation, who is that actually designed for? Is there a specific type of case that, mediation is probably the way to go, the right path?
Mediation is designed for two people who want to come to an agreement. Mediation is designed for two people that want to work together and find a resolution, find a solution, put an end to this amicably. When I hear, I want to go through mediation, but he's gonna lie, mediation is useless. I want to go through mediation, but she's demanding for everything, the house, the kids, the this, the that, and almost asking for my right testicle. Mediation is not going to work. Mediation has to be two people that are willing to find a solution to avoid the court process, to avoid the attorney discussion. If you two are not in a position of peace where you're able to say, you know what? It just didn't work out. Let's figure things out. And it doesn't matter the net worth, the kids, the this, the that. Mediation is there for those who want to be honest. If you think that one party is going to be dishonest, chances are it's not going to work.
What are the red flags, would you say, besides, someone flip-flopping? One day they want this, one day they want that. Are there other red flags to kind of look for that maybe mediation is not the right avenue?
The tension between the two of you.
One
If
day
there's
hot, one day
anger,
cold.
if there's anger, if there's, and again, you talk to me, you're going to get one set of answers. You talk to an attorney, you're going to get another set of answers. You talk to 10 attorneys, you talk to 10 divorce coaches, you're going to get 20 different answers. To me, what I've seen is unless it's truly peaceful, mediation gets tough. It gets difficult because it's still emotionally charged. There's still a big part of vulnerability involved. Here's the funny thing. You're divorcing somebody, but you got to trust them through the process.
Yeah. And you have the peanut gallery always giving you their 2 cents.
And the peanut gallery is another problem, and God knows we could do an entire series of shows on it. But it all depends on the circle that you choose. Mediation is very precise. It's very delicate, and you need to absolutely know what you're going for. You can't be wishy-washy.
Would you say it works more for less complicated divorces, such as not having children, not having many assets, or is it the same?
Doesn't matter, because you could have no assets, but one cheats on the other, and then it's just flame on all the time. You could have no kids, no assets, but you're on the border of alimony rules. You're on the border of spousal support. There's so many things that come into play. It really has to be. The one question I ask people is, Matteo, are you ready to sit 3 hours face to face with this person and negotiate your breakup?
You really do have to ask yourself that, because if you were, you probably wouldn't be getting divorced in the first place.
Mediation is a fantastic tool. It's for, in my opinion, a minority percentage of divorces.
And when it comes to collaborative divorce, I've heard that they call collaborative divorce like a divorce with guardrails. What does that mean?
You're going through the process, but you have your attorneys with you.
Okay.
You're basically having a bodyguard with you as you're going through the process to make sure that you understand what you're going through. You understand where you're vulnerable. You understand where you're exposed. But you're advancing in the hopes of finding a resolution and moving forward.
And should you not find that resolution in a collaborative divorce, would your attorney come to court? Would they still be representing you? How does that work?
The attorney's with you the entire way. And if, should it blow up, well, you already have your attorney working with you.
Okay. And should someone pivot out of collaboration? Is there a certain situation where they need to pivot out of that?
It's like anything else, Matteo. Like, you walk into mediation, the hope is to find an agreement. The hope is that things go well. If things start going sideways, you pivot out of it, you move to the next step. Collaborative divorce, you're working together, you want to find a solution, but if at the end of the day, someone starts to get difficult in what they want or whatever the case may be, you may have to pivot out of it.
And pivoting out of that, are you talking litigation now?
Yeah. And litigation is going to be the highest cost type of divorce, the most complicated one, but sometimes it's got to happen. The law firm that I work with, in our last show, we had Christy, the founder of Z Family Law, and one of the strong suits of her law firm, what I explain to people is that when she hires an attorney, she hires a litigator. Right. So litigators ready to walk into court at any point, go into trial and, get down and dirty if they have. But the other thing that she looks for is a master negotiator. And the reason why that's important is because over 90% of the time, her law firm is able to negotiate settlement agreements for their client without going through the court process. It's where nothing else has worked. But now what happens is when you're talking through the attorneys, you're removing the emotion from it. And hopefully you have an opposing counsel that, is the same opinion to try and get a solution, and they work together and they hammer it out. If it doesn't work, well, guess what? Buckle up your chin strap. We're going to trial. And nobody wants to go to trial. Most attorneys don't want to go to trial. There's some of them that live for it. There's some of it that, like James Sexton says, he's a trial attorney. You don't go to see him for mediation. You don't go to see him you go to see him when the bomb goes off and you got to send in whatever, Delta Force, elite sniper team. He's that guy. He lives for it. He admits it. He's good with it. Makes a shit ton of money because of it. But when you go to representation, it's because it's serious.
I always say, do what you do best and delegate the rest. And during my second divorce, I remember thinking, I can handle this. I'm smart. I've had businesses before. I've managed big teams. I know how to negotiate. I don't need a heavy legal structure. But Gio, that ego thing, that almost cost me everything. Because what I didn't understand, when you're emotionally activated, you're not strategic. You're just reactive. I remember reading emails from opposing counsel on my chest just tightening up. I wanted to respond immediately to defend myself. I over-explained. Every time I just reacted emotionally, and it made things worse. I wasn't playing chess at all. I was just swinging at everything that came in. And the moment that I built that legal buffer, that moment just stopped. I stopped being that frontline soldier. And I let the professionals, like I said, do what you do best, delegate the rest. And I let them kind of come in and that conflict disappeared from me internally.
You know what? It makes me think, because my first divorce took 3 years and we were in court. Man, I almost put a wing on the courthouse with the amount of money I was spending. But here's the thing. There were times where I represented myself, but it just dawned on me the way that I want to explain it. When an intelligent person goes to a casino, what do? You say, I'm going to take $100 tonight and I'm ready to lose it. Pro se has to be the same thing. You're walking into court, but you have to be okay with the idea of losing. So one of the reasons why I went to court on my own, she wanted to take my son on a trip to the Dominican. Now, she needed my authorization, blah, blah, blah. But she wasn't giving me the information on the trip. So I knew legally I could walk into court and at worst, what are they going to tell me? He's going to go on a trip to the Dominican. Okay, fine. He was like 5 years old at the time and refused to give me information. And she goes, we're going of like the resort and we're going deep into a village. I'm like, okay, there's still a possibility that I'm going to lose this. But do I really need the attorney for this? I'm like, I'm willing to lose. So I went forward. She showed up with her attorney and, we sat down. The judge sent us to sit down and talk about it. So I sat down with her attorney and I was like, well, I don't have the documentation of the trip. And furthermore, I'm like, I'm not comfortable with my son going off the resort into a village where she's the maid of honor. So she's obviously going to be partying. And she told me that she's going to leave our kid with the family of the groom who doesn't speak English, doesn't speak French. And those are the only two languages with a little bit of Italian that my son recognizes. I'm like, it doesn't work for me. Ultimately, did I think my son was in danger? No. Did I need an attorney to come in and me blow $5,000 for that day? No. But there I felt comfortable. And when we didn't reach an agreement, went back in front of the judge and, I looked at the judge and I took my shot. I was like, listen, going to the Dominican off the resort into a village, being left with he's 5 years old, doesn't understand the language. I'm like, there's Rambo movies that started this way. I'm like, and Your Honor, I don't have the money to hire Sylvester Stallone and, his band of misfit toys to go in, drop in by helicopter with like and the judge looked at me and looked at her and said, you want to change your mind instead of me giving an official ruling. So I won. But had I lost, wouldn't have been the end of the world because there's still a level of trust with my. But when we went to trial for custody, when we went to trial for every single part of the divorce, I wasn't going to be cowboy enough to do that on my own. So pro se is really that night you're going to the casino and you're going to say, I'm ready to lose this money.
And that's a very good analogy. I love your story. And I just think before you choose which way you're going to go, ask yourself, number one, could I sit in a room with my ex and stay regulated on something like that you went through? And do I need a buffer? And like you said, am I willing to lose this $100? And I'm choosing peace because it's strategic or because I'm afraid of conflict. And if fear wasn't talking, what would my calmest self choose? You're not just choosing a vibe, you're choosing a battlefield. So it's best you ask yourself these questions.
You have to. And at the end of the day, I like mediation. It's got its positives. I like collaborative. It's got its positives. The starting point to me is always having an attorney. The starting point to me is always having somebody who can go, Matteo, this is where you're exposed. It's the same thing when you're dealing with prenups and postnups, and you need the attorney to sit down and explain to you. When I get people that approach the law firm for prenuptial agreements, they're, oh, we agree on everything and it's beautiful and it's great and we don't need a lawyer and blah, 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 blah. Okay. You still need one. And where I lead them is, where can you be challenged? Because at the end of the day, any agreement can be challenged. Right? So what I tell people is, Matteo, you're getting married. Fantastic. It's great. You're thinking about a prenup. Fabulous. Is she getting an attorney? No, she says it's okay.
Big no.
And here's why. Again, a contract is worth the paper it's written on. So you do the prenup, you give it to your fiance, she signs it, doesn't get an attorney. You hit it big. You're making millions. She decides to leave you. Well, baby, you know what? There's a prenup in place. I didn't understand what I was signing. I was under pressure. Did I have an attorney? I didn't have an attorney. You drafted the documents, not. And what happens there is that everything gets challenged. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win, but it's a matter of protecting yourself, because the first thing is, when they signed the prenup, did they understand what the hell they were signing?
Yeah. And prenups are often challenged. And it's not they're challenged today. They're challenged in 17 years from now. Like you said, when you're making the millions and stuff, okay, did the other party have an attorney? Was there full disclosure and due diligence? Was any of that done? That needs to be done. And that's the most important thing about prenups.
Yeah. And, I've seen prenups go for as low as $2,500. I saw a prenup that went for $17,000.
Yeah, they're pretty labor intensive, depending on the assets and things that you have in there, for sure.
But if you're going to do it, you're going to do it right. And again, do it with an attorney. When anything comes to the law, do it with an attorney. When anything comes with your car, you deal with a mechanic. You might YouTube how to change X piece because it's something small. Okay. If your radiator is blowing smoke, You really going to YouTube that? How to fix a broken radiator. Yeah, I'm not going to adventure into that. I'm going to call the mechanic. I'm going to be like, yo, dude, my car is blowing smoke. I need your help. You need to get the necessary help for whatever it is you're going through. And no matter what level of representation or what route you're taking to get divorced, you always need an attorney. We have people who decide to go pro se because they can't afford the attorney full time. But you know what they do? They hire the attorney on a consultation basis. So, hey, I'm going to court. This is the situation. Coach me, guide me, get me ready. Is it the best option? No. Are you at the very least educated enough from the attorney to be able to better represent yourself? Yes, you took a necessary step to protect yourself. You did the smart thing. Those who don't, we have people that start off, and I think this has happened, 3 times in the last month. Start off on a consultation agreement, get overwhelmed, and they're like, yeah, I nope. And that's where they call me and they're like, okay, Gio, like I need the law firm, like full representation. Okay, let's upgrade the agreement.
Yeah. I see that all the time, actually. They'll come on in a consultation, have a kickoff call with the attorney as the attorney's, explaining all the legalities and going through everything. And just filling out, just doing the paperwork, the initial paperwork could be so overwhelming. And then they come back and they're like, no, man, I need you guys to do this. It's just too much.
We go through case evaluations, and one of the first questions I ask is, Matteo, what do you do for a living and how much do you make per year? Well, why do you need that information? Because it says you've been married for 12 years and you got kids. We're going to have to figure out child support. And how is child support calculated? Yeah, I need to know how much you make a year. Or you don't have kids and there's potential alimony. Oh, she's been a stay-at-home wife for 12 years. Okay. You make $175,000 a year? Okay. But you don't want to give me how much you make. Right there, you're showing me that you're being defensive in what it is that you want to do. Divorce is not a walk in the park. Once every 3 months, I'll get a, hey, we've been divorced for X amount of time. We've realized that we want to modify custody and we both agree it's really great that, and I'm there and I'm like, are you there, Gio? I'm like, yeah, it's a beautiful surprise to see 2 people, 2 exes, and there was a recent one where the person goes, we were talking about it and we've both been single, but one of us started dating. So we decided that we want to put in this agreement. Why? Not because they didn't trust each other. It's because you never know when the peanut gallery is going to start talking, right? Because we see this often, specifically with men, where everything is cool until one of you gets into a relationship. And it's usually for different things, right? The man will do it because he realizes that he's now lost her for good. And now it's like she's no longer available. So it tugs at the heartstrings. So he gets emotional and reactive. When he gets somebody new, it's usually because she feels that she's no longer the only mom. And now who is this girl going to come in and try to be the stepmom to my child and blah, 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 blah. So there's tension that builds. So I love it when I see couples going, you know what, we're going to protect ourselves now and put in the agreement and make changes. And it's fantastic. But these are not things that you do pro se. Look, we're going to go over them again as we wind down the show. Pro se will work 5% of the time. And you see it on Reddit, you see it in the Facebook groups. Well, don't hire a lawyer, go pro se. What advice are you giving? You don't know the full story, right? Going for advice online is kind of like going on the T apps or are we dating the same guy or are we dating the same girl to see if the guy that you're dating or the girl that you're dating is on there. And I've seen, I'm so proud of these people that have the courage to post it. No, they're giving their side of the story. So if you're going to go there and you're going to get an opinion off of somebody, but it's a one-sided anonymous opinion, and then you have people that have never dated the person that they just start making a comment on that's what pro se is. Pro se is going to get advice from the peanut gallery and then thinking you can advance.
Sounds dangerous.
I've been divorced twice. I'm a divorce coach. I work with family law attorneys. I'm going to be arrogant for a second. I think if there's anybody in the world that is qualified to go pro se in a divorce, it's me. I've been through it twice. I work with attorneys. I have access to opinions whenever I want, whenever I need.
And maybe you've heard this before or experienced it. And I hear it from people. I have a simple question. But you know what? A simple question doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a simple answer, right?
And I've become mean in my circle. You're a divorce coach, right? I have a question, not a problem. $75. What do you mean? Well, we're not going to have a full session, but $75. But why? Because I have questions before I answer your question, and we have no choice. We got to go through them. But I got questions. 75. No, but it's something simple. Just like when people go into a case evaluation. Matteo, I don't even know why I'm calling you. This is the easiest divorce you're ever going to see. And then 20 minutes later, they're panicking because I started hitting pain points. So pro se, like you're going to the casino. If you're ready to lose, go for it. Mediation, only if you two are truly ready to sit down and talk. Collaborative divorce, I like it. But again, it's in the name, collaborative. Try saying that word 10 times fast. I cannot. But collaborative, you have to collaborate together with the attorney. It's not for everyone. Litigation doesn't mean you have to go to court. It just means that you're going to have somebody in front of you negotiating for you, regardless of what you choose. And the haters can say what they want. But I truly believe that 100% of divorces need some kind of legal representation.
I agree with you there, Gio. And you explained it and you explained it thoroughly. I mean, I completely understand how you've explained it very clearly. And in closing, I would say, look, you're not just fighting for a verdict. You're fighting for your peace. Choose your battlefield accordingly. Okay. And if you're ever considering going pro se, I'd probably say stop. Stop considering it. You're not saving money. You're gambling with stability. This is Divorce Real Talk. Take care, guys.